Well, I am joined here on the desk by Newsmax TV contributor Morgan Thompson. Morgan, it's great to have you back here.
Great to be back.
I listened to Harry Reid, and I'm somewhat astounded. One of the largest left-leaning newspaper in the country accused of a gender pay gap, and somehow Harry Reid blames the Republican Party.
Well, what he's referring to is, I know you know, but for our viewers, he's referring to the Senate Republicans in April blocked the Paycheck Fairness Act, which would apply the executive orders that Obama enforced regarding the federal contractors and apply it to the entire workforce. Now, the federal contractors enforces about 20% of the workforce, and this would take it and apply it to the rest of the workforce, and that was blocked by the Republicans.
Well, there may be a problem with the constitutionality of that, but in terms of basic fairness, I always marveled, Morgan, during my days in Congress, that some on the left who spoke glowingly of equal pay, who spoke about workers' rights, were basically ogres to their own personal staffs. But let's drill down more. The article in the New Yorker by Ken Auletta really illustrates pay differences between Abramson and other top executives. Here's a look. As executive editor, Abramson's starting salary in 2011 was $475,000. Bill Keller's salary that year, $559,000. Her salary was raised to $503,000, and only after she protested was raised again to $525,000. She learned that her salary as managing editor, $398,000, was less than that of the male managing editor for news operation, John Geddes. She also learned that her salary as Washington bureau chief from 2000 to 2003 was $100,000 less in that position than her predecessor, Phil Taubman. So this is this discrepancy.
Yes.
Of course, I am struck by the magnitude of the pay to begin with. I don't think anybody was missing a meal. I know it's expensive to live in New York.
It's
but
definitely not a bad paying job. Well, the interesting thing here is, and there have been all kinds of allegations running around and a lot of he said, she said, and but what I find interesting is they certainly can't claim it was performance-based. Under her leadership, 8 Pulitzers in 3 years, less than 3 years actually, and when she was hired in 2011, the stock price was $5 a share. Well, before she was let go, it went up to $17.37 a share. So certainly performance is not an issue.
The only thing, Morgan, about that has to do with circulation and really the cost, the enormous cost that the New York Times confronts as we essentially go to a paperless newspaper society with so many people checking it out on the internet. Now, what makes this delicious is the New York Times editorial board with an op-ed on April 9th of this year, the headline, "The Truth About the Pay Gap." Let me quote from the editorial. Greater transparency could have a significant impact, giving employers incentive to correct unfair pay discrepancies by making it more likely that employees will find out if they are being shortchanged. But wage injustice matters to all Americans, regardless of party, and those who stand in the way of fairness do so at their own political peril. That old saying is, physician, heal thyself. Editorial writers live up to that policy. Hey, I'm just kind of curious, in your mind, Morgan, who's winning the media war here? Haven't really heard too much from Abramson's camp, but I understand there is an Instagram photo from her daughter.
Do we have a picture of that?
There. Yeah.
Yes. Well, what I've heard is that there's actually a gag order that she has reached a settlement and isn't allowed to speak on that. I don't know if that's true or not, but that is what I've heard. So it might be that she's not able to say anything, but I think this photo speaks volumes.
Well, yeah, let's read what the accompanying text is. Mom's new hobby, #girls, #pushy.
Yes.
So what about the pushy hashtag? Is that a...
What that's referring to is that was one of the reasons given for her firing. They have been saying, and this has been going on for a while now, she's really been having a bit of a power struggle and butting heads with her managing editor and also the owner of the newspaper. So they call her pushy. They call her, they make a lot of not so nice comments about her being aggressive and being, and one of the pushy comments was leveled at her after she questioned well, apparently she had her attorney question the discrepancy in the salary.
Yeah, it is very interesting, and I first heard about this in an interpersonal communications class back when I was an undergraduate, and that's more years ago than I would care to count. But for women, when they're assertive in the workplace, and being assertive is different from being aggressive.
Right.
And it sounds to me like Jill, through her attorney, was being assertive, that somehow comes into this, quote, pushy.
Well, and rightly
note.
so. You don't become one of the top women in the world without being aggressive. And maybe that means you're a little pushy. You know, men never get this sort of criticism. And I find it interesting that you study that as well. I actually am a minor in women's studies. And that's one of the things you learn about, how you speak and the type of words you use and the tone you use really define how you come across.
I hear about women's studies. I got to tell you, I've studied that off and on for my entire life, and you ladies remain a mystery to me, but that's part of what goes on. Back with your comments next on America's Forum.